When I was a kid, my parents moved a lot. So we went from place to place. And every time we went to a new town, my father would look for a church to take us to. And so we would go to several different churches, different Sundays, shopping for our new church home. And virtually the consistent thread that went through it were certain little phrases that we were taught in Sunday school. And one of them was, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, even at a young age, I thought to myself, if I love my neighbor like I love myself, that's really not very good. Because I didn't really think I loved myself all that much. And so I have changed the title of this talk to Love Yourself as Your Neighbor. Because that's really where it's at. You can't even really love anyone until you love yourself. And so why don't we? Why don't we love ourselves? And one of the things that comes to me is that, it's judgments, really. It's conditions. We put conditions on ourselves and conditions on how we get to feel love. And those conditions and judgments are taught from the tiniest child on up. You're a baby, you come into this world, and you don't know anything, but you know that when you're cuddled in your mom's lap, you feel okay. But as a young baby and a child, you don't really, you're looking to mom to do everything, or dad. It's outside of yourself. You don't know that you are love. And so you start craving attention and love. And you do it in all sorts of ways. You cry and you find out that you get cuddled at first. But then later you cry and you get punished. And you do good things and you do bad things, but it's all trying to get some more attention. Because to you, or the child, the attention is what you crave. It's the closest thing you know to love. And even when you're doing bad things. And then that you get a little bit older, and what happens? You start looking for that love among your peers. And if those peers, try to encourage you to steal cigarettes from the corner grocery store, in order to have that acceptance and love, guess what you do? So we're all just constantly looking for love or attention or acceptance outside of ourselves. I didn't bring my notes up here. So we're all seeking love, and we are all looking for it outside of ourselves. And we find ourselves in transactional relationships. We're still looking for that thing that makes us feel loved. So sometimes we choose a mate that had certain dimples when they smiled at us, or gave us a certain gift. And we felt like, oh, I'm appreciated, I'm loved. And that turns into a relationship where we're expecting certain things of our mate. And it can also be the downfall of a relationship when that doesn't happen. So regarding Course in Miracles and the kind of meaning that we take in things. I put this in my newsletter, but I'm going to read it again. It's just a little paragraph. It says, I do not know what anything, including this, means, and so I do not know how to respond to it. And I will not use my own past learning as the light to guide me now. And I think that's pretty profound. We tend to project, all of the conditions we put on ourselves, we project onto other people, and then that's the whole meaning we give to life. And so one of the first things we would need to do would be to start to draw back on the judgments that we put on ourselves and project out to others. And that's not easy. As I studied the Course in Miracles, I did it 3 times, and always within the group, I would say to myself, every time I work on myself, my husband gets nicer. Funny thing about that. So, I think that that's relative to the projection. So we kind of need to gradually reduce or release all of our inner conditions in order to be able to feel not conditional love, but unconditional love. And, as we've learned what love is from our childhood, seeking for acceptance and attention, we don't have a clue, really, of what love really is. So sometimes, I'm sure all of you have some idea of unconditional love. We get some glimpses sometimes of unconditional love. I was working in the office in Unity a long time back, and I did a directory. And one person in the church I missed. I didn't get their name in the directory. And she was extremely upset about it and didn't just complain once. She repeatedly called me in the office to object another time and another time. People won't know who I am. So I would take it and I would wait for the next time when she called. Well, one day I was walking through Costco, and I was coming out of the vegetable part, the cold room, and turned my cart, and around the corner towards the cold room came this woman that had objected to my missing her in the directory. And I looked her in the eye and said hello, and I just felt this immense love that came up through me and through my eyes and through her eyes, and together this love built and then just went out in waves. And it was so emotionally wonderful that as we went on our way, I had tears in my eyes going, what was that? When you have those experiences, you finally get a glimpse. Oh, this is love without conditions. And what you can do with that, if you've had it, is to hold that as like a comparison, you might say. If you want to love without conditions, you can hold on to and remember what that experience was like, and it'll be different for different people. I described that event actually in my book, in that little forgiveness page. And the other person in the book experienced it as more of a light. So it can be different for different people, but basically what you want to do is then realize what's not love and start releasing all of those conditions on yourself. This is how you can start to love yourself. Because I think what happens is we put more conditions on ourselves than we put on other people. And we beat ourselves up. So we need to hold on to the idea that I want to love myself like that experience that I had. And if you haven't had that experience, ask for it. Ask for the experience of that love, and wait for it. You can meditate for it. I think I'm going to run that in a meditation later. But you need to have like an anchor and be able to then recognize those conditions that are not truth. All of a sudden, if you have that love, and remember that any love, if you love a kitten, you are experiencing love running through you. You are the one experiencing the love. And so you can sometimes get it started with anything like that, a beautiful flower, a sunset. I had an experience once I was traveling in Scotland, and I was sent up to some people I didn't know who were going to host me for a couple of days. And the woman was just running anger like you wouldn't believe. She was friendly to me, but whenever her husband was with her, you could feel the vibes of this anger. And the kids were all acting up. Well, she took me on a long drive out in the country to see some things. And as we drove along, she started to explain to me what was going on. And she said, well, that her husband had had an affair with his secretary, and it hurt her deeply. And the husband had said, well, he'll stop doing that, and wanted to stay in the marriage. And so there they are, still staying in the marriage, but she is seething with anger. And I started asking her, like, what does she want? What does she want to feel in her marriage? And she said, well, I want him to be sorry. And I asked her, like, do you think that when you act out in anger that it's going to make him feel sorry? Because it seems like maybe he would justify it more. But if he was sorry, then how did you want to feel? Well, I want it to be back the way it was when we first fell in love. And so I started asking her, like, what would she want to do to feel that kind of falling in love? And so we got to a different place. And I'd love to say that she was fixed. But I can say that years and years later, I heard from a friend of a friend that they were still married. So I think it did do some good. But the point is, to have that image of the love is the way to let go of all those conditions and love yourself. You know, we'll never completely get rid of conditions. Conditions are, it's all there is really in this earth plane is lots of conditions and judgments. And it would be nice, to say, well, I once had a friend in a spiritual group who I said, how are you? And he said, detached from everything. I thought, you're not alive. So, like a lot of the judgments that we make are important. If you're driving along, you don't want to have to decide what it means if a car is cutting in front of you. You need to have a response like, oops. So getting along in this plane, as long as we're alive here, we're going to have conditions. But if we can hold on to the the love that we want to feel, the love that we want to feel for ourselves so that we can send it out to others, then we need to do a little comparison and notice when we're having conditions, projecting, judging, and go and realize what they are. That's really all it takes to let go of those things, is to realize, oh, that's not really true. Or you can question it. But that can move you into that place where you can then feel good inside. I almost always nowadays say, oh, I'm wonderful when people ask how I am. And you know what? It's true. I feel great inside, but it's taken a long time to feel like I love myself. So let's just take this into meditation. You don't need to. Just close your eyes. Let yourself relax. Relax your head. Relax your shoulders. Relax your legs, your body. Let yourself just sink into your chair. So relaxed. And you might even mentally move yourself right into your heart space. And start to think about loving yourself. Loving, thinking even of something else that you love. Could be God, could be a kitten, could be anything. Let the loving start. Start to notice it, feel it. And I think probably most of you have spiritual guides. I know all of you have spiritual guides, but some of you are aware of them. You can ask your spiritual guides to help you feel unconditional love for just now. Even if objections come up, if you think of some conditions of why you can't love, let them go. You only need to let them go for right now, so that in this moment you can feel that love grow inside. And let that expand in the silence. Put a smile on your face. It helps to elevate the feelings. And just know that this love that flows through you can now flow out into the world to everyone you meet. You're always going to feel more love as you love others. And it has to start inside yourself. And you can begin to feel yourself in this room, feet on the floor, When you're comfortable, you can open your eyes. And so it is. Amen. And thank you, God.